Welcome back to our next lesson in grade 7. We're talking about order of operations today. Alright, in most languages, the meaning of words depends on the order that you're actually saying them. So when you do an English class or something, here's an example. Sign the check is not the same thing as check to sign. We've just swapped the words around there and it has a completely different meaning. The same type of thing can apply in mathematics. When you make breakfast cereal in the morning, do you put milk in the bowl first or do you put cereal in the bowl first? I've tried doing it both ways and it makes a difference as to which way you do it. I'm sure many of you have too. When you get dressed, you put on your shoes or socks first. Would you try and put on your socks and then put on your shoes, or would you try and put on your shoes first and then put your socks over the top? It makes a big difference as the order that you do it. So in our lives and in maths, we need to do things in various orders to make sure they turn out the right way, and that's where this thing called order of operations comes in. So if we look at these two examples that we've got on the screen here, if we work from left to right, we start by doing 10 plus 8 first, and then times 6, and then divided by 2 squared. But if we do the order of operations, we do it in a completely different order. We actually start with this term back here, and then we worry about these ones in here before we worry about this 10 plus at the start there. So when an expression has got more than one operation, you've got to know the order to do it in order to solve it correctly to get the right answer. To make sure everyone gets the same answer, we use order of operations. So everyone knows that if you write a problem, it's going to work out the same way every time. So the order of operations is the specific steps we follow in multi-step problems. And by multi-step, I mean it's got more than one symbol in it. So more than one plus, times, multiply, or divide. So everyone gets the same answer. A numerical expression is this mathematical phrase which has got numbers and operations and so on. So we've got some examples in the middle here. 4 plus 8 divided by 2 times 6 and so on. When you simplify a numerical expression, you're finding its value. You're working it out is what that means. So simplify, evaluate, find the value of, anything like that. It just means work out the answer. Okay, so what do we do? Perform calculations inside brackets first. B. Solve indices. Sometimes indices is called orders or powers. Okay. We then look at multiply and divide signs, but we look at them from left to right, and I'll explain how that works shortly. And then the last thing we look at is addition and subtractions from left to right. All right. And those are simplified like this one on here by the acronym on the left, BIDMAS, or sometimes if we don't use I, we use O. All right, so brackets, indices, multiply and divide, and addition and subtraction is the last one. But BIDMAS is what we say. Sometimes we say BODMAS. Okay. All right, so brackets first. Always do them to start. Indices, so the little powers, they come next. Multiplies and divides come next, and it from left to right. And add and subtract comes last, from left to right. Now, we say like BIDMAS or BODMAS, it sounds like the multiply comes before the divide, but that's not true. Step 3 is you start working from left to right and you do all the multiplies and divides as they come. Step 4, you don't do addition before you do subtraction. You do them both together from left to right. So let's have a look at some examples. Yeah, like it says there, it's 4 steps, it's not 6 steps. You don't do the multiplies before the divides, you do them together. All right. Sometimes it's helpful to underline which bit you're doing, particularly when you're starting off. Alright, so in this scenario, if we look at this one here, my first term was B for brackets, there aren't any. Indices or orders, powers, there aren't any of those. So the next one is multiplies and divides. So if we work from left to right, we run along, that's a minus, there's a divide, so I'm going to work him out first. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then I'm now onto this line. The 24 didn't change, so he came down. The 2 didn't change, the 3 didn't change. Now as I do this line, this second line, I run along doing the multiplies and divides. That's this one here. 4 times 2 is 8, and so on. Okay. You can see on the third line here, I'm going to work out the minus first because it's the first one I come to from left to right. And it ends up looking a bit like this upside down sort of, you know, you start with a very wide problem at the top here and you end up with just a number at the bottom. So let's have a look at some examples. 11 plus brackets, 15 minus 3, close brackets, times 2. So I'm going to put my equal sign over here. First thing you do is you write down your problem like it's written there in yellow. I put my equal sign there. So you write brackets. I've got brackets, so I'm going to do them first. That's the 15 minus 3. The 11 is not going to change, so he comes down. The plus doesn't change. 15 minus 3 is 12. And the times 2 doesn't change, so he comes down the next line. Equals goes on the next line. You don't put a another equal sign over here and keep going over here. All right, that's wrong. The equal sign for this line is there on the next line. I'm now going to work out, there's no indices. I'm now onto this line here, multiplies and divides. I've got to multiply, so I'll do him. So that's the next step I'm going to do. The equal sign is that one down there on the next line. 11 doesn't change, so I put him down. Plus doesn't change. 12 times 2 is 24. And I've only got one more thing to do. The yellow and the purple writing is what you have written down. The blue writing you don't need, obviously. My answer is 35. Let's have a look at this one. Righto. No brackets, don't need to worry about him. Indices, I've got one of those, I've got 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36, and the rest of it doesn't change. Okay, so I've done that step 2. Step 3 I'm up to now, multiplies and divides. I've got one down the end there. The rest of it doesn't change. Plus, doesn't change. 5 times 2 is 10. So I've done that step and I'm on to my last step now. Addition and subtraction from left to right. Well, the first one I've got is 36 minus 13. So that would be 23. And my last step is like that. Okay. Notice you try and keep your equal signs lined up in a straight line down the page there. All right. Notice that the sum gets smaller and smaller as you work down the page. And that's how we set them out. Let's have a look at this one. All right, I've got some brackets, so I'll start with him. But notice inside my brackets, I have a little bit going on inside here. I have to now use my BIDMAS or my BIDMAS inside the brackets first. So if I look inside the brackets, there's no brackets inside the brackets, but I do have an indice, and that's the first thing I'm going to work out. He doesn't change, the minus sign doesn't change. I'll worry about the 16 in a minute. The divide I'll worry about in a minute. 2 squared is 2 times 2 is 4. And the plus 3 doesn't change. I'm still working with inside my brackets now. I've got to do the 16 divided by 4. And that is 4. Alright, so I've done that step now. There's no more multiplies and divides. I'm now on to my last step. 50 minus 4 is 46. 46 plus 3 is my answer. All right, let's have a look at the last one. Okay, so you're working along, looking from left across to the right. What have I got? I've got some brackets that I'll deal with. I'll do them first. Alright, so 3 times 5 is 15, that goes in there. Alright, no indices to worry about. Now I've got multiplies and divides from left to right. So I've got 60 divided, oops, my mistake. I should work that out. 60 divided by 12, 5 times 12 is 60. Now, technically I could write out 4 times 15 is my next line. I know I'm going to be doing that next because that's my next multiply and divide I've got to do. 4 times 15 is 60. And my last line, 5 plus 60. There. Okay, so I've technically skipped out the line in the middle here where I had 5 plus 4 times 15. I skipped that line out in there. All right. There's more that you can have a go at. Try some of them. They're done exactly the same way as I just showed you there above. And there's plenty of examples here. A little game that you can have a bit of a play with. And have a go at the exercises in that little grey box there. Sorry, that purple box in the middle there. Thanks for coming.